The ISO with Dan Dickow and SB Live Sports, brought to you by the Believe Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals.
Here's Dickow from the deep corner for three. It's on now. Downtown Dan connects.
Every morning when I'm working out, I'm listening to your podcast. Keep up the great work.
I mean, I've seen Dan Dickow hit some big shots in the NCAA tournament.
I gotta salute you, man. Like, I've been watching you since I was in high school, trying to mimic all your moves.
Welcome to another episode of the ISO with myself, your host, Dan Dickow, for SB Live Sports. Today's guest, someone that I connected with for the first time way back in high school. This would have been 1995, 1996, as he was an assistant coach at the Naval Academy. Currently an assistant coach at Michigan State. It was nice to reconnect with him a few years back as he spent a year or so under Coach Mark Few at Gonzaga. Coach Doug Wojcik. Doug, thanks for joining. How has the transition being back to almost normal for college basketball in the summertime been for you?
Well, great to see you, Dan. It's so awesome to connect, and hard to believe that I did a home visit with you 26 years ago, or yeah, I guess it's been that long. But it's really interesting. So we're 2 weeks away from school being in session here. We're a campus of 52,000 students. So for the last 18 months, we really come to the office by ourselves. There really hasn't been that many people around. Our players live across the street from the Breslin Center, and we're somewhat self-contained here, but it will be interesting to see how it all goes. We do not play a home football game until September 11th. So I think that weekend will be the weekend that we feel like, okay, pretty much campus is back to normal, and seeing everybody in kind of the Spartan spirit.
I touched on in the intro, the first time that we connected, I was a high school player. I had a tremendous high school coach in Eric Yort, who's become a close friend and mentor to me. He's no longer coaching. He's just in the business world. But you played high school basketball for a tremendous coach in Skip Prosser, who went on to coach at a number of stops in college and have a tremendous amount of success. How lucky were you to play for such a good coach in person in high school, and how did that help shape you?
It's a tremendous gift. I mean, it's a great question. Not many people really connect me with Skip, and unfortunately, people forget that Skip a little bit just because he passed away, in I think 2007 now. But unbelievably lucky coming from a small town. We both came from small towns, so to be well coached for somebody that as motivated as he was to go on to college. If people don't remember him, he took 3 schools to the NCAA tournament. He took Loyola Maryland to the NCAA tournament, and then took Xavier to the NCAA tournament, and then took over at Wake Forest and recruited Chris Paul, who's still getting it done at the NBA level. So very, very fortunate. Probably besides my father, he's the biggest mentor I had early in life. Created the dream, work ethic, sort of showed me how to go about it. Used to drive us to Pittsburgh and play and pick up games up there. 5-star camp, took us all over the place. Had his own 2 sons. His youngest son is the head coach at Winthrop University in South Carolina now. So he sacrificed his own time as a father to spend time with me and my teammates. And we went on to win our first state title in West Virginia. So tremendous opportunity for me, but also a great mentor that really led me to what I'm doing now. And this is my 32nd year of Division I coaching.
Well, 32nd year being involved as a coach at the division level. Many times people or coaches get involved or get that coaching bug because as a player they're around it and they don't want to let it go. But as a high school player being recruited, I'm sure by a number of different schools, you made a decision to play for the Naval Academy. And I remember when you recruited me way back in high school, talking about the discipline, talking about the standards in the code of conduct and different things that would have to be upheld. It wasn't for me, but it was definitely for a lot of student athletes. It was for you. What was the attraction for you to go to the Naval Academy and play basketball there?
I just thought it was just in a unique place. Now, I did not grow up in a military home, so I can tell you that just like you, I was no different, where there was going to be some transition. You know, there was going to be the phone call home where I want to quit. I don't know what this is all about. But in the back of my mind, I think I was driven to always, be from a place that, was always going to be something that was special. And to this day, it's funny, we're talking, we just had to cancel. We were going to have a team reunion in Lake Tahoe this year. So my teammates were special people. And as you and I spoke before we, started to record, when you have a chance to go win in such a unique place, and in your case there at the time, Gonzaga was such a unique place that you won, you just have a tendency to keep in touch with those kind of people and those teammates. So really proud that, I represented my country, served my country. My wife is a graduate. She's from out your way, grew up in Eugene and then Bainbridge Island, Washington. So we're both proud to have spent time in the service and as veterans. And it's just a unique conversation piece as we age, and we have a great group of people that are our teammates, our classmates. And it's like a big fraternity.
One of your most famous, or I'm sure your most famous teammates, is one of the best basketball players of all time, top 50 dream teamer. You played in college with David Robinson. What was that experience like? Because if I remember correctly, in reading stories and watching videos and things, he just kind of progressed throughout the course of his career until he was an absolute bona fide number one draft pick. But he had to spend the 2-year commitment after college before going to the NBA. Tell us a little bit about him and how good of a player he was. And I'm imagining a person when you read about all the things he's doing post-playing career.
Yeah, I mean, very, very true, very accurate, Dan. I think that's part of the legacy of, my feelings towards being a Naval Academy grad is certainly David didn't go to the Naval Academy thinking that he was going to be an NBA player. I mean, I kind of describe him as Halley's Comet. It's just unique. The true story is he was probably about 6'8", 190 pounds when he entered. And you could just see him get better and better and better and better and better. The game was played a little bit differently back then. We weren't playing with ball screens and things like that. So we were throwing it into him, quite a bit. And you could just see him developing and developing and developing. And by the time we graduated, he was 7'1", 235 pounds, and just a supreme athlete. Very, very, very intelligent. So he went there for all the right reasons. In today's world, Dan, he probably would not stay at the academy. And yet you look back and you think of branding and you think of the nickname, the Admiral. All of that has sort of helped him in his post basketball career. So he's got this unique brand. He's a veteran. He's an NBA MVP, scoring champion. Just he's won every award you can ever win. Rookie of the Year. And it was a unique thing, a unique time. For us, when we went to the Naval Academy, you always heard about Roger Staubach's football team, right? I mean, that's all you ever heard about. Mm-hmm. And it's a good thing. In our case, I mean, Navy football is, bigger than Navy basketball, but in our case, I got to play with our version of Roger Staubach on the basketball side and being David Robinson. David's 3 sons are thriving. The one son just played in the NBA Summer League with the Spurs. Been married to the same woman, has 3 boys. Just a overall, success story.
So your time at the Naval Academy, is that where you caught the bug to want to be a coach? Because if I'm correct, you have a commitment after your playing career or after your college experience at the Naval Academy. You have to do a tour of duty or whatever it's called. But did you know you wanted to come back and get into coaching?
Yeah, I did. I kind of go through this real quick for your listeners. And you did say it correctly. David's commitment, the typical commitment is 5 years as a naval officer. So David grew to 7'1". He couldn't serve on a submarine, a ship. All that stuff was pretty unhealthy for him. And then he became the college player of the year and the number 1 pick in the draft. So they were smart. And I thought, did the right thing. They reversed his commitment from 5 years active duty that I had to 2 years active duty, and then 5 years inactive reserves for David. In my case, I was 5 years active duty, and then I had 2 years of inactive reserves beyond that. You've really hit on some great things. We had so much success, right? Like, you've never left the game, right? Like, you start off at Washington, you go to Gonzaga, you have an NBA career, you're training kids, my own kids are players. So, it's just never really left me. I knew I wanted to be around it, but Skip Prosser was a big part of that. So he was my mentor. He was a Division I coach by then. He kind of taught me how to recruit and be detailed and take notes and things like that. And then I knew that I was in a unique situation at Navy, just like you were kind of unique initially at Gonzaga and, the initial success. In my case, I knew that I could be a great recruiter at Navy. So I kind of turned that into a positive for myself. I went to my ship. I served on my ship my first 3 years. And so then in the spring of 1990, I still had 2 years of military active duty service, and they rotated me to shore duty. Some people rotate to, say, the Pentagon. Some people rotate to University of Washington to teach ROTC. In my case, I rotated back to the Naval Academy. And so then I got to become the military assistant coach while I was still serving. So, I really was able to parlay it into my second career. I got out of the Navy in 92. I worked as the military assistant for 2 years, and then they hired me as the full-time civilian assistant, with a coaching career in my future in 1992. So it really worked out great for me. I really was able to do a lot of things. And fortunately, the Navy kind of allowed me to do that while I was still serving my time.
That's fascinating. I really had no idea how that can work and how that did work in your instance. So you grow your coaching philosophy, your platform, your experience level. Most assistant coaches get the bug to test out themselves at the highest level of being a head coach. What was that like for you, making the transition to being a head coach, not only at Tulsa, but at Charleston? So as an assistant, at what point do you know that you're ready? And then how do you share that with other assistants that are up and coming?
Yeah, I don't know if you ever know if you're ready. Every situation's different, right? I think the biggest thing that I look at what my wife and I did is we were not afraid to move. We were not afraid to get out of our comfort zone. So I worked really hard at Navy for 9 years. We went to 3 NCAA tournaments in 94, in 97, and 98. I got rewarded by Matt Doherty. Matt Doherty was an assistant at Davidson and then at Kansas, and then he got the head job at Notre Dame. And basically we were friends, but we weren't that close, but he just watched me from a distance, saw our success, and he rewarded me with the opportunity to go to Notre Dame. And that was the big break I got. Little did I know that a year later we'd be at North Carolina. Notre Dame was a very, very good fit for me. Notre Dame and Navy, they play in football every year. They have a wonderful relationship because the two universities, Navy kind of saved Notre Dame back in World War II. So there was a good fit there. But I don't know if you ever really know that you're ready. But I had great experience. I had Navy at the low Division I level. Notre Dame, we kind of revived it in a year, and then North Carolina, my gosh, I'm at the forefront of things. And then I'm working for Tom Izzo. So I felt like at 40, I was really prepared. The biggest challenge for us was really to kind of go to another region of the country. I was an East Coast guy. I recruited nationally. And then all of a sudden we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So from we have 2 kids. I don't have we don't have any grandparents around to help us raise the kids. I'm a first-time head coach. So from that perspective, we had to reach down and circle the wagons, and she helped me do it and had great success over 7 years. And, and then to Charleston. So I think there's a lot of things that you make mistakes at. I think there's a lot of things that you can improve, but then there's a lot of things I look back and go, man, wow, we really did a lot of things there at Tulsa. Transitioned Tulsa and Charleston to higher ranked conferences. It was kind of like that time frame when conference realignment was going on. So that was a challenge, but looking back, it was a lot of work. As you know, you've got 4 kids or 5. I can't remember.
6.
No, 6.
We've had another one since
so
we last
6.
saw each other in Spokane.
Yeah, so 6. So we have the 2, and you just sort of, you try to manage that, and all you have time for is your job and trying to raise your kids. And look back, and now we've got 2 college-age kids, and couldn't be happier with where they are with their development.
After you were head coach at College of Charleston, you came to Spokane, and that's where we reconnected a few years back. You were a special assistant to Coach Few for a season. What makes Coach Few so unique and so special? Because as a former player, he doesn't necessarily take himself seriously, yet he takes things seriously, and he takes things seriously that impact winning. He's not about all the extracurriculars. What would your overall take be on Coach Few and then the Gonzaga program?
Yeah. Wow. That's a great question. Really, really unique situation. And Mark deserves so much credit for just everything about building it into what it is today. I will say this, more than anything else, the one thing I took from them is they have supreme game day confidence. I mean, just they expect to win. And that was from Mark to Tommy to B Mike, on down the line, all the way down. Unique fan base, incredibly supportive. And then I used to always preach this, just because I'm a head coach at a place like Tulsa. A lot of people in Tulsa would sit there and say, well, we were Gonzaga before Gonzaga, right? In the 90s with Tubby, and then Steve Robinson, and then Bill Self. But the difference is, and I used to always say, it was just no one ever listened to me. What Gonzaga has been able to do is they've been able to retain Mark. And so now you're sitting there as a former great player there, you're in town, you're raising your family, you have your businesses, Casey Calvary's there. There's this unbelievable alumni network, and everyone can relate to Fewy, because everyone has some connection to Fewy. And that in itself is just incredible. It's sort of what we have at Michigan State. Tom has been here 37 years. And that kind of continuity, besides great coaching, besides great players, besides great support, really kind of allows everyone to feel a piece of the program. And that, to me, is the unique thing about Gonzaga.
Yeah, that is very insightful. Transitioning to Coach Izzo, I've never had a chance to meet Coach. In 2001, we played Michigan State when he was the head coach in the NCAA tournament in the Sweet 16. We lost. They had a loaded team: Jason Richardson, Zach Randolph, Aloysius Anaganya, Charlie Bell. It was a loaded team. But he is one of the coaches that I see from an outsider's perspective has stayed true to what he feels is important in basketball and in life. And I think he gets a bad rap at times from people who truly don't understand him or his approach. I personally think it's great. What is Coach Izzo like to work with and watch him work on a day-to-day basis? Yeah,
the thing that I'd say is that the bad rap is just, I don't know it or see it or really follow that, other than the fact that he's about accountability. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, I say to people all the time, well, wait a minute. Did you have children? Do you have children? What was it like to raise your children? If there's no accountability and there's no rules, then people get to do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it. And he just doesn't believe successful organizations can be built that way. And so I get consistency from him. I get effort from him. I know where I stand on a daily basis. And I think most people would love to have the truth. He's going to speak the truth. He knows a lot of things about a lot of things. He's been here a long time. So, some of these things going on today, he just doesn't truly believe in. The transfer portal is, he thinks that there's reasons to transfer. I mean, my son Paxton is like a son to him. He understands why Paxton transferred. No problem. Coaching change, a lot of change. But just to say, oh, things aren't going right, I'm going to transfer. But on the flip side of that, Dan, I will say this, the unique thing about Tom Izzo, he's going to put his time in. He's putting his time in with your son. And if he brings a kid here, he's going to make sure to his best ability, that kid's successful, because he's going to hold himself accountable as, why did I bring him here? I'm not going to just recruit over him. I'm not going to just change our roster just to change our roster. I'm going to make it work until it doesn't work. So you can't fault somebody for that kind of effort. You can't fault somebody for that kind of commitment, because he's really, truly committed, not only to basketball, but he's truly committed to Michigan State University.
That's awesome. I love hearing those descriptions about Coach, because like I said, I haven't met him, but I respect him, what he's accomplished, and I really appreciate his approach and his passion for the game and his players. I think that's the biggest thing I see, is the passion for his players, because every coach has a passion to win. But what I see is Coach Izzo has a passion for his players. So staying on the topic of being a coach, whether it's an assistant or a head coach, and you mentioned your son Paxton, who you have two sons that play at the college level, Denham and Paxton. What is more nerve-wracking for you, being in a timeout in an end-of-game situation as a coach, or watching them play as a father?
Well, it's funny. It's a great question. I feel like I'm even a better coach now because of my kids. I really do. I get it. I understand it. The recruiting process. I mean, Dan, you work guys out. So what parents generally don't understand is, okay, if we're at this event in Indianapolis and there's hundreds of kids running around, I say, well, okay, multiply that by 40 places around the country with the same amount of kids. So to realize how hard it truly is, right? Like, I'm sure your kid's a good player because he's around it all the time. But then to make it, and what's making it nowadays, is it having the career you had? You're special. I mean, you had a special experience. In my case, I had a special experience. I took it to the highest level I could possibly take it to. So from that perspective, I'm a better coach now because my two kids got recruited. I know what that process is. I know it's hard. The one thing that I really appreciate here is if we offer you, we don't offer a lot, and we stay within our blueprint of the Midwest, because Tom feels as if, if a kid doesn't have skin in the game as far as the Big Ten, and doesn't understand what it's like to go to Purdue, or doesn't understand the Michigan rivalry or Ohio State, it's just too easy to transfer. So we're gonna stay within our blueprint of Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin. But what I love about Coach is just the obligation to the individual. I just don't see it a lot across the country. And I'm a better parent by seeing all that. But I can tell you this, you're more nervous with your own child than you are, with someone else's child. You know what I mean? So you just, but I've seen it from so many angles now, right? Like, but boy, your kid's at the free throw line and he misses a free throw. I mean, that's going to hurt a hell of a lot more than it does when it's someone else's kid. But it has helped me. I'll be honest. I've had a great ride as a father. And I don't know if you remember me pulling into Spokane, but we drove 2 cars across the country. We roll in there, people open their arms to us. And that kind of was the beginning of our kids' kind of movement, because then our kids went to boarding school. You had to seek out in a way, a shoe sponsored travel team to get the exposure that you needed. And so, I think your own child makes you a little bit more nervous than just coaching the team.
That's awesome. I might have to call you for some advice
Oh,
in the
yeah.
next couple of years if my son keeps progressing. But
You'll
Doug, I
have to go
appreciate
play
the
for.
time.
You'll probably have to go play for Washington Supreme out of Seattle or something. Who's he playing for right now?
Eastern Washington Elite. I
Okay.
coached a group with Eastern Washington
Yep.
Elite this summer, who I know
Is-
your son's
is-
played for.
Yeah, is Jamie still involved?
Jamie Nillis is still the director of
Yeah.
Eastern Washington Elite. They do a really nice job regionally. But you mentioned Washington Supreme. Yeah, Carl Howell's been a guest on
Yep.
my podcast.
Yep.
He's one of the best as far as getting AAU teams to play in a style that college coaches want to be able to evaluate players in.
Yeah, Carl knows. You know, it's kind of cool, Dan. You'll appreciate this. So when Denham committed to Harvard last May, you know, we didn't make him. We just suggested, you know, we made sure that Stacy Boyd there in Spokane, who coached him and Joe Few and Tyson early, and then Jamie, we called all those guys just to let them know that he made his commitment, because all of those people have something to do with your journey as an individual player. And I appreciate everything those guys do on the youth level to kind of help kids get where they hope to go.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Doug. I appreciate
All
you
right,
joining.
Dan.
And
Yeah.
Hopefully with my college basketball analyst travels, our paths will cross.
No
sometime
doubt,
soon.
man. Hey, wish you and the family the best. And anytime you need some, we'll try to get Izzo on here. How's that sound?
I would love that. I would love to hear Coach Izzo's philosophies on life and basketball. So thanks again.
See you, Dan. Take care.
The ISO with Dan Dickow and SB Live Sports, brought to you by the Believe Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals.